Here we go, Get Em Onside, the Legend Series. Now, folks, in the past, State of Origin, we have had the Blues greats. We've had Craig Wing, we've had Andrew, Bobcat Ryan, and as you know, we go for the story. We just go for something that we can dig away and find a few little gems. And let me tell you, folks, if you want to pause the YouTube or the podcast, however you're digesting that right now, press pause because you want to get yourself a cup of tea. This next guest, he is going to be awesome. He said, how's this rundown look? I said, look, to be honest with you, Jimmy, there's a clue. We're playing Eyes Up Television. I don't know what I'm going to ask you. You probably don't know what I'm going to ask you either, so let's just do this. James Maloney, welcome to Get Em Onside.
Cheers, Jolly. How you going, mate?
Mate, I'm outstanding. Gibbo has given me some notes, so I'm not completely lying, but, mate, thrilled to have you here. Are you happy with the Eyes Up Television play or not?
Mate, it's pretty much how I live my life and played my footy, so it works for me.
And by the way, folks, our man James Maloney still playing his footy. Now, my spies tell me, Jimmy, you might have pinched a meat pie on the weekend, did you?
I did, mate. Got my first one, so the old legs have still got it. So we had a loss, but got a first try, so all in all, still enjoying it. Got a bit of bark off, as you can see, so nothing's changed there.
Beautiful stuff. Now, let's go back before we go forward. So this guy here, what a career. And I've been speaking to my daughter. I think she thinks too much about rugby league. She needs to get her inner James Maloney about her when it comes to that. But, Jimmy, let's go back to the start. So born in Orange, somehow the family make their way to the Central Coast. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, born out Orange and played footy till under nines out there. And then, we left and relocated to the Central Coast and grew up there from then on.
Dreams as a kid to be an NRL player?
Yeah, look, I think I always played it, for fun and obviously aspired to, and at different times probably wondered whether it would actually happen. And as I said, I didn't go through and play all the junior reps and that like some other kids, so I was still playing on the Central Coast when I finished school. And my sort of journey down to Sydney was just through an open trial where anyone can just rock up. And
so no one invited you down to trial for them?
No.
Not one club saw James Maloney and said, mate, do you want to come and at least trial for us? No one?
No.
You invited yourself?
No, me and about 5 mates just went down to North Sydney Bears, and at the time North Sydney Bears obviously didn't have a pathway all the way through to first grade, so they tended to be sort of the second option for other guys. You know, if kids didn't get picked up for another squad, then they'd come to North. And me and about 4 or 5 other mates went down, pretty much all got picked up, and I was doing my carpentry apprenticeship once I finished school, and we'd basically go to work, all meet at Gosford train station, carpool down, and had a good time. Had a lot of fun that year, travelling down and back and doing that. But, that's how it all sort of started.
You wouldn't get your debut in first grade at 23, but before that, you make your way to Wentworthville. And I remember calling a grand final where I reckon, honestly, and this is not exaggerating, there were 15 or 16 shots at field goal, and I reckon the game went, maybe it's the longest played game of all time. I reckon it was like 30 minutes plus of extra time. And you played in that. Is that true? Yeah,
it was. I think I had 2 of them or something and missed. And, by the time it got in, it almost got to the point like, I'd be happy if the opposition just kick one and win because I'm so over this game of footy.
Yeah.
But, we ended up scoring a try in the corner and, went on to win. So I think it was like 104 or 108 minutes or something like that.
Ridiculous. You went to the Melbourne Storm with Craig Bellamy. How did that happen?
Yeah, look, so as you said, I played 2 years in reserve grade there at Parramatta and was sort of close. I was right on the fringe to sort of playing on standby a couple of times and just didn't quite happen. And basically Hagues had said to me, he goes, they wanted to sign me and keep me. He said, you'll play first grade next year. But I just sort of thought there was not much more I could do in reserve grade. I was sort of playing really well in reserve grade, sort of up near the top of, most of the awards sort of thing there. So I sort of didn't know what else to do and got a call from Craig Bellamy. And at the time, if you remember, Greg Inglis, they were playing him at 5'8" because they didn't really have a true number 6. So Billy 8 called me and just basically said, look, there's no promises, but there's obviously a spot there if you want to come down and fight for it. And I remember talking to my old man, and funny enough, so my old man played with and against Craig Bellamy.
Oh, really?
When my old
Because your dad was an Orange boy.
Yeah,
and he's at Portland.
Bellyache was at Oberon.
Oberon, through Portland. Lived at Portland. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so they played in the local rep side together and played against each other and stuff like that. So funny how it all sort of works out. But, yeah, I remember my dad just saying, he said, mate, no one goes down to Melbourne and leaves a worse player than when they arrived. And that was enough for me to go down and develop my footy, and went down, learnt so much in that 12 months, and got my debut jersey. Actually had it presented by Craig Bellamy because of the link, you know, and he said, he goes, I was thinking about who to, you know, give you your jersey and that, and he goes, because I knew your dad and all that. So, and my old boy had actually just passed away at the start of that season, just before in 2009. So, yeah, so that was pretty special and pretty memorable, and yeah, played one game, played my debut, played the following week, and then I played 2 more games off the bench at hooker when Cam Smith was in Origin. I think Ryan Hinchcliffe was suspended 1 week, and then obviously opportunity came up over at the Warriors. And
who was that? Like, I'll ask you 2 questions in one. Do you become the player you became without the detour to Melbourne? And secondly, who was the person who signed you at the Warriors?
Ivan. So, funny story. So, obviously, my time at North Sydney, my first moving around, I got down there and Greg Florimo actually said to me, he goes, mate, have you got a manager? And I was just a young kid playing footy. I said, no, What do you mean? He goes, I think you should get one. And anyway, he put in touch with Wayne Beavis, who had all my career and was absolutely unreal for me. So he got me my first contract out at Parramatta. Would you believe it? My first contract at Parramatta was $12,500 a year.
Wow. So
I had accommodation, that in the units, and I used to work 2.5 days a week because I had my carpentry apprenticeship. I used to do, Mr. Fix-It jobs around the stadium. So did that, and then through Greg Florimo had actually, obviously with a link to Ivan.
Yeah, well, Josh Stewart was a Bear, and that's his brother-in-law.
Yeah, so Flo had actually spoke to Ivan and said, look, I've got this kid here, I think he's good. So I'd had a telephone conversation with Ivan at some point when I was at the Bears, and then obviously went away, and then basically, I've called me again and said, look, mate, we'd like to get you over. And for me, it was going to be full-time first grade, which is what I needed at the time. I was sort of ready, and I was just waiting, just sitting behind people, and it was a big call at the time because my girlfriend at the time, now my wife or whatever, she just moved down to Melbourne with me and fallen pregnant. So we had our first child on the way, and it was a little bit of, you know, if you go over there and you're not playing first grade, sort of you'll be out of sight, out of mind, and it'll probably all finish, you know. So sort of, I think that all made it more important to me, you know. Up until there, I probably wasn't as professional and that as I should have been, and that might have
until that point.
Yeah,
so
and
that sort of changed the switch. Didn't
I think it became. Then it wasn't about me. It was about, you know what, you've got responsibilities now. You've got a child on the way. You either need to do this properly and make a career out of it, or you go back and get on the tools and earn it. So yeah. Turned out to be really good for me, and loved me time in New Zealand, had a lot of success. And
what was your first year there?
2010.
And then 11, you go to a grand final.
Went to the grand final. So 2010, we finished 5th, I think. We got beat by Gold Coast Titans. And that was, remember, it was it wasn't top 4 was second chance.
The old McIntyre.
And it was like lowest place loser. So we'd finished 5th. But 2 of the sides...
everything went against you.
Yeah, so we got knocked out after finishing 5th. And then the following year, in 2011, we actually finished 6th. We went to Brisbane and got absolutely hammered by the Bronx, but 7 and 8 both lost. So we went again.
Did you have to watch a game? Did you know already, or did you have to watch a game?
I think the first year, remember the game... the one that cost us was Tigers Tigers Roosters when Braith kicks that field goal.
And Kenny Dow runs the
they had the scrum where Simon Dwyer smashes
that's
Hargraves.
Right. Yes.
The game's over. We're on again next week.
Braith kicks a field goal.
They played the scrum. No one grabs it from the scrum, and then it all goes.
So Braith kicking the field goal kicked you guys out?
Knocked us out because I think they were below us, So how it all works. And then, so then the following year, obviously, we finished up 6, went to Brisbane, had a horrible game. They must have put 40-odd points on us. But we got a second chance and we knocked Tigers out on the
7 and 8 got both barrelled out.
Yep.
They did the right thing by you. Yep. So now you got a free lifeline, free spins, and you took on the Tigers.
We had Inu scored right on the bell. Do you remember that try?
No, I don't.
They kicked over, Inu's taken a ball and scored right on the bell.
Do you need to kick the goal?
And we've gone, I think it might have been... we might have been ahead by then already, I think. And then we had to go to Melbourne, knocked off Melbourne, and then obviously got to the grand final.
So 2011, you win the prelim in Melbourne.
Yep.
And then off to a grand final, you take on Manly. Glenn Stewart hadn't played for about a month, comes out, gets a Clive. And it was...
Mate, he kicked Glenn Stewart just before half time.
Yeah.
Grubber kicked from his own 20 metres. Like we come up on our heads, bang... Grubber kicked out of his own 20. They picked it up, ran down, like we ran them down, and then Cherry Evans scores or whatever on half time. Like massive play.
So just before we get off that game, because the coach was Ivan Cleary.
Yeah.
Now that you know what you know, does it surprise you what he's achieved in the game, Ivan?
Nah, look, I think I've been pretty fortunate, if you look at some of the coaches I've had Ivan Cleary, I've had Trent Robinson, I've had Craig Bellamy, and if you look over the last probably 10 years, they're probably between them, they've probably got every premiership of the last 10 years, So, and I think they've all got different attributes, I had 12 months under Craig Bellamy where I learnt so much. Say all the time, I had 3 years with Trent Robinson, and he probably taught me more about the mental side of rugby league than anyone else. And, obviously had 2 different encounters with Ivan. Obviously, when I first started, and I was a young kid still learning my way in first grade, and then reunited with him at the back end of my career at Penrith. And obviously different relationships when I was sort of senior player and that. But Ivan was someone that understood that football is not black and white, and I think, there's so much grey, and I think sometimes you find kids, they come through and, whether they're defending, say if it's a defensive centre, and they want to know when they need to jam or when they don't need to jam, and it's almost like if they jam and get it wrong and they score, then they've got something to fall back on and say, yeah, but you said this. Yeah. And I think that you're missing the point that we still let in a try, And I think Ivan just understood that, and gave everyone confidence to just back your ability, back your instincts, and play in the grey, and that's where football is based. So very calm head, Ivan. Not, when you talk about guys with blow-ups under like a Craig Bellamy and Ivan, he was never very good at a blow-up. He used to just throw in a few F's and Q's just to let you know he was really annoyed.
Really?
So it was like the same message, but just a few F-bombs in there just to know I'm really annoyed at the moment. But
so, Jimmy, you spoke about your carpentry apprenticeship. Mate, your apprenticeship in rugby league, you mentioned those names. And you throw Flanagan in there, Cleary, Bellamy and Robinson. Any sort of desires to one day be an NRL head coach?
Well, I don't know. I don't doubt that I could do it in a heartbeat. Like I think if I wanted to go and do it, I think I could do it tomorrow with a senior advisor or someone that could steer in the right direction. I don't doubt that my football knowledge is capable of doing it. There's obviously, within coaching, there's a whole lot outside of just knowing the game that goes into it. But I really enjoyed, obviously, the opportunity at North Queensland. Had, Todd Payton and Justin Morgan, who were both really good to me and really good for me to bounce ideas off and things like that. But I just had an inkling that I didn't want to do the full-time thing. So I still enjoyed working with Tommy Dearden and, seeing him progress and have a really good season. And that's sort of the reward you get from coaching, helping guys improve and seeing them go on to do good things. But, yeah, for so long of my life in football, you block out from mid-November through to first weekend of October.
4 kids too.
Yeah, and you can't do anything. And, to have free weekends and be able to go watch my kids play sport and that's probably more important to me at the moment. So I'll be open to coaching opportunities that are part-time roles or consulting or working with halves and stuff like that, but I just don't think I want to do the NRL full-time stuff.
Cody Walker, Cliff Lyons, James Maloney, so many stories of, players who weren't selected in every rep team along the way have absolutely flourishing careers. We get to 2013, so you've been picked up by the Roosters and 25-1 you were at the start of the year, and I know that for a fact. I'll tell
Did you get on?
Well, I didn't, but I'll tell you why I know, because I'd played in France under Trent Robinson, and I knew how good he was.
Yep.
It was his first ever year, and we're having a wine at home, and had a couple, because that's what you do in France, right? You have a few wines.
Have plenty.
So we're having a few, and I said to Robbo, I had this epiphany. I said, mate, you're going to win the comp in your first year. And back in those days, there were no Ubers. So he finished off his drink. He said, I'm going home, calls a taxi, and off he went. He rings me the week of the grand final, and I got no idea. This is like 9 months later, 10 months later. I got no idea what he's talking about. He said, mate, can't talk, grand final week, but just want to say you're right. I said, well, right about what? We'd spoken about 15 times in that time. Right about what? He goes, you'll know next week. Hangs up. I get a call on the Monday from his phone. Robbo, Daniel Tupu's on the phone, 2013.
Yeah.
Coach just wants you to know you're right. I said, throw him on. I got no idea what he's talking about. Puts him on. He said, remember back in November last year, I just got the job. You said I'd win the comp my first year. We'd had a few. I got the taxi and off I went. He said, I knew you were right that week, which was quite bold for him to ring up and say that. But when did you know that I was right, I suppose, for that 2013 grand final? When did you know? Because that game, I reckon that grand final, Jimmy, where you must have went so close to the Clive, so close. When did you think, yeah, this is ours?
Yeah, look, I don't think you'd know, but I knew that we would determine the outcome, So I knew that if we went and played our best game of football and Manly played theirs, that we'd win.
Yep.
And, I think that's a good position to be in, because probably when you look back at the Warriors, when we made it there, and you look, over the course of, time, you start to realise that you sort of can't just go on a run of 2 or 3 games and fluke a competition. But at the end of the day, the side that's more consistent, that does it over and over again throughout the year, they end up coming up trumps on grand final day, because under pressure, it holds true. And yeah, so I think I knew we'd be in control of the match, and how we perform would determine it. But I don't think you just know you've got to do it on the day. That's a big thing, So, but the fact that going into the game that your best will get the job done gives you a lot of confidence to just go, right, sweet. It sort of helps block out anything else, and just go, well, mate, we just need to perform. And
you're in deep trouble in that game. You're in deep trouble.
Yeah, we had that. We had that one. I remember, I think it was Sammy Moa come around or whatever and said, which I find so interesting, just of how, because in my head, he tipped to Sonny, because Sonny goes, yeah, tip on to me. And then I was just looking at defensive line, and it was like in my head I knew, I was like, mate, he'll tip to Sonny, Sonny will go in here, he'll get hit by him low, but he'll have a ball ready for me on the outside. And it just unfolded literally as I could see it going, and then I come through offload, and it's funny going back how the head just processed. I was like, I saw that all coming. I was like, this is how it's all going to unfold. And then I threw that forward pass for all you Manly fans to Minnie, and we scored. But
Kenny Dow scores a try.
Yeah, so I went
Did
to
he have a
Mini.
broken rib or something? Or what happened?
Broken jaw.
And he had it for the whole game?
Yeah, right at the start.
Yeah, wow.
So, yeah, he went and got surgery, I think, the next day or something like that. Played, pretty much most of the game with a broken jaw.
Wow. And then, so you go to Cronulla. In fact, we'll take this little intermission here, folks. One of the few players at club level, I can't actually name any others right now. One of the few who played with Paul Gallen and with Sonny Bill Williams. Who wins?
Well, look, I sit on the fence. We actually had Gal on our podcast, and I said, I'm going to turn up with one of those half jerseys with Williams and Gallen on either side. But
Galleons.
I think obviously it'll be Sonny's got, reach, height, all that sort of stuff. But I know you could hit Gal with a piece of 2 and you wouldn't knock him out.
Is he the toughest you've played with, Gal?
Yeah, he's definitely right up there for sure. Played with some other like Boydie Cordner and guys like that. But so I know, I think Gal sort of said that he'll just go after him the whole fight, So, and I think it'll be a good matchup because I think it'll be a challenge whether Sonny can outbox him and keep him at bay and that for the whole time, and whether Gal, he'll probably sacrifice maybe getting one to get in tight and sort of have a lash at him. So, I think it'll be a good matchup.
Gut feel, if you can only choose one.
Oh. What's the odds?
No. I'm more interested in your odds. Gut feel, just your gut feel.
Gut feel. If I had to say a pick, mate, I don't know. Sonny on points if he can stay away.
Right.
Just because I think obviously that's where it's going to start. I think Gal. I think if Gal gets to him, Gal could win by knockout. So I think it either Sonny on points or Gal by knockout.
Okay, Gal's knockout came in 2016, and what an amazing story this is. The Cronulla Sharks, who had never, ever, and not one since, never won the competition ever in their life, Jimmy, and you go there as a prize guy, as a guy who knows how to get there. You'd been there for the Warriors, you won for the Roosters, and now is this the time? Take us through that year, 2016. Yeah,
mate. Well, it all sort of started, obviously. Originally, I never wanted to leave the Roosters. There was a bit of drama, sort of went over there, salary cap and that, and it just wasn't going to be possible for me to stay. And from the moment I knew I wasn't going to be able to stay there, Cronulla was where I wanted to go. They had such a experienced forward pack to play behind, and they had some really exciting outside backs and that coming in, and no disrespect to the halves that they had there at the time. I think they had Jeff Robson, and I think even Wade Graham was playing at 6 because they didn't really have another half. But I just thought that I could jump behind that pack, get in there, and just put it all together.
So did you go there, Jimmy? Sorry to interrupt. Did you go there believing that I'm actually going here to win the comp? I'm not going here to make the Sharks run top 4 or play final. Did you actually go there to think we are going to win this comp?
Well, I think that's where I went to everywhere. Like I always, a lot of people say, you went, had a lot of success everywhere you went, but I always knew why I was going to a place. Like, when I left, obviously at the start I went to Melbourne, obviously a great system who are always going to be strong for an opportunity, a bit the same with the Warriors.
Yep.
For opportunity, but also the one thing with the Warriors is you'll always have a strong pack to play behind. And if you're a half, what's the first thing you want is a decent forward pack to sort of play off the back of. From there, when I come back to the Roosters, mate, I knew the Roosters had a good roster. They hadn't performed well the year before, but I thought they were underperforming for what they had there. So, that's where I wanted to be. And as I said, then I went to Cronulla for that. So I always wanted to win, and I always wanted to make sure I went somewhere where that would happen. So, definitely went there and knew the potential in the side. And then, it turned out to be a crazy year, when we went on, was it 16 games in a row? We won, and it's football's so fun when that happens. Everyone talks about the ups and downs of the season, but when they're just up, like it was a ball.
Cronulla.
Yeah. So
Gal tells a story, Jimmy, where you take on Melbourne, I think it was, and you get a penalty at the start of the game, and he takes it too. and you're not getting beat 30-2 or 20-2 or a big number to 2. In the grand final, you get a penalty to start the match. And Gal's head's fallen off because last time he took the 2, and he takes the 2. He takes the 2.
You're right. I didn't even know that.
Oh, you didn't know that?
I don't remember that.
Yeah, so he tells the story. Yeah,
you're right.
When you played Melbourne, did you get flogged by them during the year?
I don't know. Do you know what? I do remember.
He is the goldfish, folks. This guy is the ultimate goldfish, which is great.
I'm pretty sure, but we did play. We went down to Melbourne because we made 116 in a row, and I remember at the time. Then we sort of went, bit win loss, and there was sort of people sort of stressing out, going, "Oh, look, are they sort of losing it?" But I said to all the boys, we had a lot of experienced guys. I said, mate, we were just sitting in like a holding pattern, like we had everything in place, and it was like we were guaranteed to be finished top 4. We couldn't miss top 4, and we were just sort of sitting idle waiting to go again for the semis. Because I think if you ever look at a side that's absolutely humming, say a month out for semi-finals, you cross them off because you can't hold that for 8 weeks, and you don't want to be playing your best footy. So we were just sitting in a holding pattern. All our technical stuff was good and was in order, and we were just beaten on little bits of effort and that because we were just sort of just playing through. But we knew as soon as it came to semi-finals, we'd just go bang up, and we had everything in order. So, but I do remember there was a game right towards the end. We went down and played Melbourne, and I think we might have just lost or something, but it was like a game that, although we lost, we were sort of back to what we were sort of trying to do, and it was like a week or 2 out from semis, and that was sort of like, we're good here, we're good to go, and then, well, I suppose even then we went to Canberra, wasn't it, first week of semis?
Yeah, Chatty gets the hook.
Our man Gallen didn't even want to play.
That's
he
right.
He woke
said,
up.
I'll meet you for the Cowboys
He
for the
woke
prelim.
up and goes, they go, Gal's not playing. He's got out of bed and he can't walk with his back. And then Wade Graham went down and got KO'd first 5 minutes. We had Kurt Capewell come on. So.
And Papa Lee was going berserk, who's back in the Queensland side, we believe. So.
Yeah, so we that was a big one. Went down there, had a really gutsy win, and
fortnight off into the Cowboys. How did you handle? Must have been hard. So your partner in crime, Chatty Townsend, the halfback, he got hooked. From the game. You go on and win it. Must have been a tough bus trip back for Chad. And then, were you thinking who's going to be my half?
No, I called him. I called Chatty straight after because I thought it was interesting. I was worried about how that would handle. How that would affect him, obviously, psyche, and I knew we needed him next year. He's been our halfback all year. He was going to be a halfback next week.
Why did he get hooked? What happened?
I don't know.
I don't remember the game.
I don't know, but all I remember was Jack Bird coming at 5'8", and then everything we sort of do went off anyway, because if you know Birdie just sort of plays and does his own thing. We're all a bit over the shop anyway, going, what's going on here? But anyway, we gutted out a tough win, and I was driving back. I think Jess and the kids had come down, so I was driving back in the car with them, and I called Chatty. And I just said to him, I said, mate, you need to flush it. I said, because you're our halfback. You've been our halfback all year. You'll be our halfback next week.
Yep.
All right, we need it. And I remember him just saying, mate, thanks for the call. Really appreciate it. And, mate, we went on. Cowboys got the Cowboys done. And, got to the big one.
So you're in the grand final. Sharks have never, ever won a premiership. And you're going to win this game. But all of a sudden, Melbourne Storm are never dead. Will Chambers scores a try, and you're behind the posts. Heads must be falling off. Like, I know a lot of Sharks fans, and their heads are falling off. And to this day, it's their greatest moment of their life, which you're a major part of. Paul Gallen tells me that James Maloney has a major say behind the posts. What did you say to the group at that time?
Yeah, I think, like we said, with the Roosters, when throughout the week, so I knew if we went down there and played our best game of football, we'd win. So again, I had no doubt we were in control of the result. So I'd spoke to guys through the week and said to them, look, boys, it's a grand final. We're not going to get it all our own way. If you think you're going to get it all your way and it's all going to be roses, we're dreaming, all right? So there'll be some point in time where we'll have to fight adversity, and how we handle that will determine what happens. And literally once that all happened and we got behind, it was just a matter of bringing them in together and just saying, we knew we'd be here, boys. This is the adversity we said.
So you spoke all week about you don't win grand finals easy. There will be a stage in the game where things have gone pear-shaped.
Yeah. This
moment was now, the pear-shaped moment.
Yeah.
And you said to the boys, embrace it. This is the moment we spoke about.
Yeah, so then I think it just settles everyone down because it takes everyone from thinking, oh, this is not in the script to, no, this is exactly in the script. We'd said this had happened. And just focuses everyone again and, you know, and gives them back the belief. We knew we'd be here. We knew we didn't know how it would pan out, what the adversity or what we'd have to face, what it would look like, but this is it. This is where we are. Now let's go. We know what we need to do. Go back, do your thing. And we went back. We had the big Fafita who scored the brilliant try, and then we almost faced a lot more adversity again in the last 60 seconds. But
who makes the final tackle?
We got there, Ricky Latelli.
Man,
yeah. So
you know, there's a trainer in the blue shirt on the other side for your team. If you get a chance to see this, Jimmy, there's a very smart blue shirt trainer in your team, assistant coach maybe, who recognises that you're cooked on the other side. He may just be standing around on that right wing position. Storm look down there, nothing doing, too much blue, go back the other side, and Ricky Latelli makes a famous tackle.
It's funny because I remember talk about like a shift over, and I remember they dropped Vunivalu or whatever, and I come through and I thought, I got him, and then I've missed him, and I went, oh no.
So it's out of your hands.
And I've just went, oh no, I'll never forgive myself if this happened. And then I remember looking up, and then they shifted all out that right side, and we had no one, and everyone was just all hands on deck, everyone working over there. And then once they stopped and they turned it back, I thought, yeah, we're sweet. We were back set again on this edge. And then I remember telling this story with Wade Graham. He goes, oh, I'm glad you thought we were sweet because he got the ball come back, I think, to Cam Smith, and he goes, I thought I could shut it down. So he ran and jammed out.
Yeah.
And then the ball got offload. So then he had a bit of a, oh no, what have I done? And yeah, anyway, went over there and Ricky made the tackle, and that was it. And I think to win your first one, like, I've just seen there's so many clips of Sharks fans, like videos of the emotional roller coaster of riding that. But I don't think you'd change it for the world because, you know, to have it go right down to the wire for such a massive thing for the first one in their history, I think that's just awesome.
Do you know, trivia question, do you know how many tackles Cameron Smith made that day?
I would have been 65,
72, I think. Yeah. Was that part of the game plan?
Yeah, well, it always was. Like, I think Cam Smith was always the key to Melbourne.
Yep.
You know, and I think you can get sidetracked even back then by Bill Slater and Cooper Cronk and all that sort of stuff. But the man that pulled the strings, who was the first one to touch the ball, was Cam Smith. And I think if you focused on that and you sort of won the ruck, so then you could handle Smithy. You know, when you were set, then it was easier to handle Cooper and Bill and all that as well. So he was always a focal point when we played them.
Gal tells a story that in round 5 you run this play called Big Man Down. And it was so poorly executed, you get smashed on it and it gets tucked away. And then remarkably in the grand final, the first try of the match, Big Man Down. Was that the call?
Well, mate, me and Wade Graham, we used to sit there and they'd practice it. They'd practice it training. And we'd sit there and go...
They've been Benny Barber, Gal.
Yeah, and we go, this is an awful play. This is never going to work ever. And we just like let them sort of amuse themselves, like, go for it, run your crap play, you know. Yeah. And then, sure enough, and if you go back and look at it, it never should have worked.
Oh, really?
Because they didn't tell
So it's still
Chatty.
A crap play?
So they didn't tell Chatty. So... like, Chatty fed it and then picked up and then Chatty, like, falls over. So then it's like Gal scoots out and then they had like the half or whatever. So Gal was on the half and we had one other man on man. So there was no reason to sort of move out to anyone else. And then, Howard, or I think the second row or someone goes past the ball where he didn't need to. So, how it actually worked, I don't know.
So still a shit play.
Yeah, crap play.
Okay, so let's move on now. And before we move on from this, And we're getting into the State of Origin. We are talking about the State of Origin Legend Series. What advice would you give? There are so many kids out there, Jimmy, and Nico Hines is another one who won a Dally M. He was mid-20s before he played first grade. What advice would you give to the 23-year-old still playing park football or wherever he is, aspirations? Because you could have easily missed it, I suppose.
Yeah.
If you stopped chasing that sort of rabbit, you could have easily missed it. What advice would you give?
Yeah, look, I think you go about continually trying to improve your game. And I don't think you need to be playing in junior reps. The football world is a small community. There's no secrets, and I think if you go out every week, regardless of where you're playing, someone somewhere will go, oh, geez, he's a handy player, and they will know someone who knows someone, or, and it'll just sort of work out. So I think that you've got to just, you've got to enjoy the game, but you just keep striving to play, improve your game, be better and better, be whatever level you're playing at, dominate that level. And sort of even now when I look back at my career now, you sort of look back and how it got to where it did. It sort of seems, like you went so far, but along the journey, it's just another little step and another little step. You're sort of playing reserve grade, and then you sort of doing really well in reserve grade, and then get the opportunity in first grade, and then you want to be one of the top players in first grade, and then you get an opportunity at representative level, and then you want to be one of the top players at representative level.
Yeah.
So it's just as, I always wanted to be successful. I always loved to win. I was super competitive. I was the kid at, family barbecues that when I got out first ball in cricket, wouldn't walk, and my uncles would say, you're out, and I'd throw the bat and I'd storm off.
Competitive.
Like I was always like that. I always wanted to win and do it, and that's what it was. Just every level I went to, I wanted to be good at it, and I wanted to be successful at it, and I wanted to win. So
very few sports, very few vocations is a situation where 5 or 6 million people, 4 or 5 million people are watching you, just you do your job. It's grand final at State of Origin. You're taking a kick for goal. There's 100,000 or close enough at the game, and there's another 3, 4, 5 million people over the world watching you. It's the loneliest place in the world, goal kicking. Take us through what that moment's like.
Yeah, look, I think say all the time when people say like you're in front of massive crowds, it's actually the more people are there and the louder it is, it becomes so loud it almost becomes deafening. Like it just sort of blacks itself out, where you're probably more off-putting if you're just at a local park with one bloke yelling out and you can hear every word he says and what's that. And then sometimes someone will come up with something half funny and you sort of have a chuckle to yourself in your head. But I think for me it was always just getting back to the process. Like you'd kicked 100 kicks, thousands of kicks over the thing, and it was all the same process. So it was just back the process and do that right, and the kick will take care of itself.
Were you a good trainer, Jimmy? Like the urban legend would say you weren't, but at the things you like, kicking, goal kicking, were you a good trainer?
On the field, I was a good trainer.
Yep.
Like go out on the field and with the footy, because as I said, I like to be competitive. I like to win. I knew football, so I wanted things to be right.
Yep.
In the gym, hopeless.
Yep.
Absolutely hopeless. There's a lot of stories about me, not training so well in the gym. But
did you do a session in the gym where you couldn't touch the floor?
Yeah.
So you were jumping
just
from
muck around, and play around, walk across dumbbells, and all this sort of stuff. But my game was never based on strength, so it was not something.
So do we overdo that then? Do you think?
Look, I think you need it, and I also, as I got older, I sort of got to a period where I would, if I'd stuffed around for a few weeks and I'd go out in the field and I just would feel a bit weak in my collisions and stuff like that, and I'd go, you need to do a bit, and I'd go back and I'd have a couple of good weeks in the gym and to feel back. But yeah, I was.
So it's unfair to say that Jimmy was a slack trainer.
It wasn't a bad
at
trainer.
Things that you felt you needed to be good at, team sessions, goal kicking. You worked as hard as anyone. Is that fair?
Yeah, and all my fitness and that. Like I was never right at the front, but I was top echelon of the.
Okay.
I was sort of probably back end of the top guys, but I'd beat most people in the fitness stuff and go all that. So you can't get to where where I got to without being a decent trainer.
Yep.
There were things, and I remember Craig Bellamy early on pulled me up after one of the army camps and said, "Why do you think you haven't played first grade yet?" And I said, "Mate, I think I could have. I'm just waiting for opportunity." And he said, "You just do what you need to do. Like if you're running a sprint, you need to be there in 15 seconds and you can get there in 13. Once you know you'll be in there, you'll just anchor down and just cruise the last," which was true. That's what I used to do. And, I think those sort of stuff, he had a good relationship with Bellier because he understood me as a player and got the best out of me like that. But, yeah, definitely not the perfect trainer, which I understood I wasn't, but definitely not a bad trainer.
Yeah. What's your take on having been coached by Flano and young Kyle was coming through the ranks? I think it's been terribly unfair what Kyle's gone through and Shane's gone through. What's your view?
Yeah, mate, look, I think it's a hard situation. I was actually had lunch with Ivan Cleary and spoke to him about the other day. And because Ivan and Nathan are coaching, like Ivan's coaching Nathan, but Nathan's really the top echelon of their side and the thing, where you're taken and your son's sort of not the top echelon and has copped some criticism. It's a hard play. It's always going to be a hard judgment call because, and I remember early times at Cronulla when Kyle was coming through and me and Wade Graham actually saying, Wade going and he goes, because Flano was like heaps hard on Kyle, things he wouldn't. And I was like, and Wade goes, I think you need to say, you just need to relax on him a bit because, it's obviously it's a real tricky waters to negotiate, massive. But I think it's also an awesome lesson for kids these days because I think social media and all this is so prevalent. And I've played with players that they love to, when things are going well, they love to read about their raps and stuff like that. And that feeds them and it's good for them. But if you're that sort of person and that's what feeds you, when it goes bad, you can't not read it.
Yeah.
And then it doubles down on you and you're sort of going like that. So I used to always talk to young kids about you just got to understand the opinions that matter and the opinions that don't. I said, because it doesn't matter how much you do in the game. I said, there'll be people that don't think Cameron Smith is as good as what everyone says. There'll be people who thought Jonathan Thurston was not as good as what he thought, There's the opinions that matter and there's opinions that don't. And you just need to know the ones that do and you focus on them and make sure they're in, where they need to be.
Great rugby league philosopher Brian Fletcher says praise and blame, it's all the same, isn't it? Like it is, like it's worth the same currency, so to speak. Okay, now we get to the point where there's a phone call or there's an announcement and James Maloney, once upon a time he's in a car with 5 travelling down to an open trial for the reserve grade Bear side and now your name's being read out for the Sky Blue of New South Wales. Well, tell us about that moment. Yeah,
mate, pretty special. Obviously, first my debut was 2013, under Loz and I had basically we played. So I was at the Roosters. We played the weekend. There's obviously a lot of talk, Origin.
Yeah. So were you in the mix? Were you heavily spruiked?
Yeah, so everyone was sort of saying, look, I'll get picked and all this sort of stuff. And I hadn't heard anything. I remember after the game, they were naming the side the next week and Trent Robinson he basically said, I was leaving the Leagues Club, he said, oh, mate, enjoy camp, have it there. I said, oh, do you know I'm in, 100%? And he said, yeah, I do. So he sort of said to me, and then the names were delivered the
alphabetical order
day or whatever. I think they on TV or whatever, they had the official list, and I was actually walking the dog out Maru Bar down there, and I remember my phone just going bonkers.
Oh wow!
Just text, congrats, and all that.
When you heard it start to blow up, did you go, oh yeah?
It must have been.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it must have been time. It's been named, but yeah, it was awesome. Obviously, it's a massive achievement. Something you dream of as a kid, and that style of football and that arena I loved, absolutely loved it. And it's funny, I managed to obviously down the track play for Australia, which is something I never probably thought I would. But still say, if someone said to me, you'll only ever play one representative game in your career, would you rather play State of Origin or play for Australia? I'd take State of Origin every day of the week.
Really?
Yeah, just that environment and that style of football. I absolutely loved it.
Jimmy, you get to go back and relive. There's a magic remote where you can rewind. You can go back and relive a State of Origin 10 minutes or a moment. Where are you going back to?
Well, do I have to relive it? Can I change it?
Oh, okay, change it.
Because I go back to a couple where we got beat very, very narrowly. If I had to go back, relive it, but obviously the outcome be the same, I'd have to go back to 18 or 19 and when we had those back-to-back series wins. But if I could actually go back and maybe have an opportunity to change it, I'd probably go back to one of the ones we lost. We had a couple against a very red-hot Queensland side, and we had some real narrow defeats. And I'd love to go back and try and change them. But
well, that's the side you talk about. Like, seriously, how do you get your head around even being competitive against those teams? And you're marking guys like there would have been the team list, and it would have been a James Maloney, perhaps against a Jonathan Thurston.
Yeah, it's crazy. And you think everyone talks about obviously the 8 in a row, but there was so little in so many. I think we lost 12-10 in the decider of my first series in 2013, and I think the other ones I lost were literally not by a whole lot more sometimes. They were really bad. I think we were talking before the 2017, I think, we really blew it. We were up. We should have won. We were in the decider back at Sydney. We were up well at half time, and we just went through a half where every time we seemed to get to our halfway, we dropped the ball and, different things like that. So we definitely had really good opportunities against those really good sides, but that State of Origin, it's never the big plays, the big moments. It's just those real little moments.
Sky blue aside, what do you truly think is going to happen here? So there's a few little spanners in the works. The mail is, as we record, Papali is going to come back. He's in an immense season. Gemet Shibasaki is going to be left centre, we believe, who's had an immense season. And the Hammer, with 15 tries under his belt, clear-cut leader when it comes to top try scorer, he goes to fullback. Billy Slater is a very, very sharp operator. You've played with him. Are you worried at all?
Mate, Billy Slater's a very good coach, mate, and he knows football very well. I just don't think, I think Papali'i back in will give him a lot more punch and a lot more momentum through the middle. He's playing some unreal footy for a bloke his age and still trucking on, the big fella. But I just don't, again, I'll talk about, where I think New South Wales will be in control of the result.
Yep. So New South Wales, as you say, at their best.
Well, they win.
They win.
If they play, and I said that before. People asked me before Origin 2, and I said they will decide the result again. I said if they play to their best and that, they will beat Queensland, no questions asked. If they don't play well and they open up the door, Queensland will get them. And they didn't play well by any stretch of the imagination, especially that first half. So I don't think anything's changed. I think New South Wales need to prepare and go and play their best game of footy, and that'll be plenty good enough.
So if Laurie Daly said, Jimmy, I need 15 seconds, speak to the group, I think your message would be, boys, you play your best ever game, and they play their best ever game. You guys take the shield.
You win, 100%. So take all the what-ifs and that out of the thing and just narrow your focus on you, each player. What have I got to do to play my best? Go out and get it done. It'll be good enough.
Wouldn't be a sugar interview without an ordinary idea, and here it comes, folks. You've won a series where you won the first 2 games, lost the last one, and we see it happen often. We haven't seen a clean sweep, I think. We've seen one in 23 years. My proposal is this. It agitates me, Jimmy, that you can win game 2, win the series, and you don't get the shield. I want the shield given then and there, right? Get in the photo. We've won the series. Here we are with the shield. We're the champs for insert year. And then we bring out the same shield, which is very, very sparsely won. It's the same shield, but it is plated all in gold. So if you nail the 3rd game in a row, you get that next photo with the golden shield for the rare team who got the clean sweep. It annoys me that when you win the series, so often we've given a shield to a team who's just lost the match.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Yeah,
You can disagree.
No, I thought they might have, because there was been a lot of talk about it. I thought they might have changed it, but they obviously haven't. I thought wrong, obviously.
Yeah.
So,
They may. Well, I hope they do, because don't you think it's ridiculous getting the photo with the shield after a loss?
Yeah, it is hard, and I think it would, for the occasion, if it's one there and then, do it. I think there's definitely there. I don't know about the extra special one.
But what about the very rare photo? And there's the photo when little Jimmy, great grandson, says, "Oh, that's the golden one." You know,
the clean sweep.
Oh, I love that.
Maybe it's got some legs. We'll see.
Agree with me. Anyway, just on, and Ollie loves it too, by the way. Before we wrap this up, tell us about Nathan Cleary. So he was a baby coming through when you were playing first grade, and Ivan brings you back for the second time under his tuition. Was he always special? What is it about him?
Yeah, look, Nathan was our ball boy when I was at the Warriors.
Wow.
And actually his little brother, who's now obviously over at
Jet.
the Warriors, Jet. So Jet would have been about, I reckon he would have been 3 or 4 or something like that.
Yeah.
Really young when I was first over there. And I was Jet's favourite player. And I would just sort of start in first grade and that. And I remember I used to say, I was like, sweet, I'm not getting dropped. I've tried explaining that to your 3-year-old that you dropped his favourite player. So I thought I was all sweet. But how funny, like in swings and roundabouts. And I come back, I ended up playing at Penrith, obviously with Nathan again under Ivan. And my young fella, Ethan, who's my third, absolutely adored Nathan.
Wow.
And used to look up to Nathan. Nathan was king. So how, like, everything went full circle.
Nathan never got dropped either, by the way.
No, we didn't drop him either.
No.
But, I think for Nathan, for someone who came in at a young age and got so many raps and everyone's talking so highly about him, he always had such a real and honest perspective of where his own game was at.
Yep.
And never got caught up in the hype of, people talking him up and doing that. He always sat there and knew where he was at, and he worked harder than anyone. The old cliche of, first in, last to leave.
I hear that, yeah.
But legit, mate, I used to be leaving training and he'd still be out there kicking goals.
Wow.
I'd be waving him, see you, mate, I'm off for the day. But, yeah, so obviously skill set-wise and knowledge of the game, and I think these days in terms of halves, and I think this is where we've really lost players that understand and think about the game, and I think that's where Nathan Cleary now as a half stands so far above, because I think there's been different ideas and structured play and ways where coaches sort of tell guys to go to a certain point on the field and run a play, and I think it sort of develops a sort of one play mentality, like we go there and we've got to run this play to try and score. Whereas back in the day, everyone was talking about the players that were 2-3 plays ahead.
Yeah.
And how you understood that I'm going to move them over here and take them over there to then get them back here. And I just don't, I think that's a bit of a lost art in rugby league these days. And I think you need to start coaching players on why they're doing things. There's so many kids, I think, that if you went down the park and you said, why do you do that? They'd say, because the coach tells us to. And they don't know why they're doing things. And I think that's probably why we've got a shortage of halves and stuff around the place now, because the kids that think about the game and understand it, they're just getting more and more rare.
When you were playing at the Panthers, Jimmy, there was a young bloke floating around in the Panther juniors, Isaiah Katoa. Where do we end up comparing him to? Like, what's his comparison down the track? Can he be a Ricky Stewart? Where do you think he gets to?
Oh, mate, I think he's, by a country mile, he's a pick of the young ones coming through. I think, and I didn't actually realise. So he's a younger brother of Sione Katoa, who was playing hooker when I was out at Mellots. I didn't know.
Not the Sharks Sione, yes, the other one.
No, the old hooker who was at Penrith. I didn't realise. I was actually talking to Nathan. He was telling me, he goes, it's Sione's brother, because I said, where did he fit in? He was obviously younger, so I didn't know him coming through Penrith. But he said, he said, we'd sort of seen him as a kid. You know, they knew he was going to be good, and they wanted to keep him Penrith, but obviously
Sully pinched him.
Yeah, sitting behind Jerome and guys like that, and the opportunity to go to a new franchise and do it. But mate, for a kid, I said before, like for a kid, if you're learning about halfback play and that, he's a kid that understands how to preserve space and that for his outside men and things like that, little basics of halfback play, he really understands, and he's so good to watch.
Wow. Okay, we'll wrap this up, Jimmy. We've taken a lot of your time. Really quickly, you go to the mailbox and there is so many letters waiting for you. And ironically, they're invitations to players' reunions. And ironically, they're all on the same day, right? So there is Wentworthville, there is France, Le Catalans, there is the Sharks, there's the Melbourne Storm, there's the Warriors, Roosters. Which one do you RSVP saying I'm coming?
I'm going back to France.
That's easy. Yeah. Okay, the planes have been closed. You can only go to Australia, one.
Well, if it's next year, I'm going to the Sharks because it's 10 years next year.
Oh, right.
Our reunion.
Yeah.
So other than that, because that takes out Warriors, I don't know, but I think now that footy's finished, that's going to start being my yearly little trips all the old boys' days.
You should make a little Jimmy's golf tours and just go around to the reunion trips. Righto, Jimmy, let's wrap this up. The State of Origin series has been won by who? So if people listening to this podcast, watching the show in 3 months' time, who won the series in 2025?
New South Wales Blues.
And who got the Wally Lewis medal?
Oh, over 3 games, isn't it? So Nathan Cleary.
Nathan Cleary?
Yeah, I think it was good game 1.
Yeah. Payne Haas will have a shout.
Actually, yeah, there's a big one. He was massive in game 1, wasn't he?
He was.
There you go. Nathan Cleary or Payne Haas.
Okay, all right. And the final score, what was the score in game 3?
I think they win by 14.
Okay, by 14. Now, the final statement, folks, to close this out, and it's been a bit of a theme throughout this. James Maloney says, if we're at our best and they're at their best, we are going to win. If who's at their best versus who's at almost at their best, who's in that grand final 2025?
I think the game on the weekend between Panthers and Dogs was the best quality game of footy for the year, bar none.
Yep.
By a country mile, I think, by a real long way. So I think the fact that even the Bulldogs, the fact they lost, I think that would have, answered a lot of questions because they had a couple of, significant losses against some top sides. So I think if I'm betting man, then that's me too. Bulldogs, Panthers, grand final.
Panthers off the canvas. James Maloney, thank you so much. If you're still watching this, which I'm sure you are, and if you're not, you didn't hear me say this anyway, what an interview this has been. This guy here is just a gem. Just recapping, this guy who was on a car trip, who invited himself, not the other way around, goes to North Sydney Oval with the Bears, trials for them at about 23 years old, finishes with 247 NRL games, 14 games for New South Wales, 3 tests for Australia, 2 premierships, grand final after grand final, takes his family to France. James Maloney, thank you very much. What a great career, young man,
mate.
And a great chat. Hope you enjoyed that. And that is another edition of the Get Em Onside series. If you haven't caught up with the chat with Craig Wing, that was awesome as well. Andrew Bobcat Ryan, both great chats, but this was an absolute stellar cadente. Catch you soon.
Imagine what you could be buying instead. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.